All right, so get ready because today we're going deep on this story that's been going around
Oh,
France.
yeah.
It's got like mystery and intrigue and honestly some pretty wild claims in it.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to be looking at this YouTube video. It's by Candace Owens.
Okay.
She's an American conservative commentator,
Right.
and she goes into the identity of Brigitte Macron.
The French First Lady.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
And our goal isn't like to say whether she's right or wrong.
Right.
It's more like we're going to dissect all this information she gives us
Okay.
and see what we can learn from it.
I see. I see.
Yeah, so it's going to be interesting because Owens kind of frames it like she's putting together a puzzle.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and each piece like brings up even more questions.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, she even says that like Brigitte Macron might not even be who she says she is.
Hmm.
And then there's this whole thing about her brother Jean-Michel Trogneux who like disappears from public view.
Yeah, he's a pretty key part of Owen's whole argument, right?
Yeah, definitely.
To get what she's saying, you need to understand like all the family trees that she lays out.
Oh yeah,
I mean, we're talking parents and sibling and her ex-husband, Henri-Louis Azier.
right.
It's all connected in this way that makes you think there's something more to it.
And about Henri-Louis Azier, the way he died and his burial, it's all really mysterious.
Yeah.
Owens looks at like all these different stories from his family and journalists and even hints that maybe the Élysée Palace had something to do with it.
It makes me wonder, right?
It really does.
Even Azier's cousin, Jean-Louis Azier, sued this journalist for getting his picture wrong in a wedding photo.
Wow.
But even he couldn't say for sure what happened to his cousin.
That's so strange.
Yeah, I mean, with all these missing details and gaps in the information, it's no wonder people are making up their own theories.
Totally. And then there's the Benalla affair, which just throws another wrench into everything.
What's that?
So this guy, Alexandre Benalla, who was Macron's deputy chief of staff,
Okay.
he got caught on camera attacking protesters while he was pretending to be a police officer.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so that whole thing makes you question Macron's judgment and whether there could be like abuse of power happening.
That's a good point.
And then Owens brings up this idea of a syndicate of influence around Macron.
A syndicate?
Yeah, and she names people like Mimi Marchand.
Who's that?
She's famous for media manipulation, and people say she's connected to extortion.
Oh, wow. So she's like a big deal in French media.
Yeah, and she can like make or break someone's image, and some people think she even buries stories that people don't want to get out.
Wow, that's powerful.
Yeah, and Owens also points to Bernard Arnault, the richest guy in the world,
Yeah.
and the fashion designer Nicolas Ghesquière.
Interesting.
They're all connected to the Macrons in some way.
It sounds like a whole network of people who could be controlling the story around the First Lady.
Exactly. Maybe protecting her from scrutiny or even like manipulating what the public thinks of her.
That's a scary thought.
It is. And the biggest part of Owen's argument is about Jean-Michel Trogneux.
Right, the brother.
Yeah, she says that he basically vanishes from public records right when Brigitte starts teaching.
When she was still Brigitte Azier.
Right. And this is where it gets really interesting. Owens shows this interview from 1977 with a transgender woman named Veronique.
Okay.
And her voice and the way she talks are like really, really similar to Brigitte Macron's.
Wow, seriously.
It's a bold claim, for sure. And Owens uses technology to back it up. She uses this facial recognition software to compare photos and show how similar they are.
Facial recognition, that's pretty high tech.
Yeah, and she says it's like the top-rated software according to the World Economic Forum.
Huh, interesting.
Yeah, so it really gets you thinking about how powerful technology can be.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes you wonder, like, how much we can really trust anything anymore, right?
Totally. It's like that feeling you get where you think, maybe they're not telling us everything.
Yeah.
Like, there's all this stuff going on behind the scenes that we don't know about.
Exactly. And Owens's investigation with all the political stuff and the personal mystery, it all just feeds into that feeling.
Yeah, it really does.
It's like she's holding a mirror up to all our worries about who to trust and what to believe.
Mm-hmm.
But okay, let's get back to the details for a minute.
Okay.
Owens spends a lot of time laying out Jean-Michel Trogneux's life, like she's building a case or something.
Yeah, and that's on purpose, right? She's trying to show that she's being objective and thorough by presenting all these like really basic details like birth records and school photos and marriage announcements so that even her more out there claims seem more believable.
Like she's saying, hey, look, I did my research. This isn't just some crazy theory.
Exactly.
And then there's the whole thing about the missing photos.
Oh, yeah.
Owens points out that Brigitte Macron has released a few childhood pictures,
Okay.
but she's never shown any from when she was a teenager or a young adult.
And that's exactly when Owens claims that Jean-Michel disappears.
It's kind of suspicious, right?
Yeah, I mean, whether it's on purpose or not, it definitely makes people wonder.
Right, it's like this blank space that people, especially the conspiracy folks, want to fill in with their own ideas.
Oh, totally.
It feeds into that human need to figure out a mystery, especially when it involves powerful people, and maybe some juicy secrets.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's not just the pictures. There are these really basic questions about Brigitte Macron's past that no one has answered.
Like what?
Well, for example, Owens brings up whether Brigitte actually gave birth to her 3 children. It seems like a simple question, right?
Yeah.
But for some reason, the First Lady has never said anything about it publicly.
Well, I mean, it's smart from a PR perspective, right?
How so?
You'd think just answering the question directly would be the easiest way to stop the rumors.
Yeah, I guess so.
But by not saying anything, whether it's on purpose or not, it just makes people even more curious.
And then there's the lawsuit.
Oh, right.
Owens mentions that both Brigitte and Emmanuel Macron have threatened to sue her for defamation.
Yeah, that's where things get really interesting.
Right. I mean, it makes sense that they would want to protect their reputations,
Yeah.
but by trying so hard to sue her, it kind of makes people pay even more attention to the claims they're trying to hide.
Exactly. It's like that Streisand effect thing, right?
Totally. Sometimes trying to make something go away, just make it bigger.
Yep. And Owens uses that to her advantage.
Of course.
She says that the fact that the Macrons want to use the legal system to silence critics proves her point about powerful people controlling the narrative.
So it brings up all these important questions about free speech and the limits of satire and whether we're allowed to question people in power.
Yeah, it's a complicated issue for sure.
So let's just recap for a second.
Okay.
We've got these confusing family trees, the mystery of André Louis Auzier's death, the Benalla affair, the syndicate of influence, the missing brother, the missing photos, all these unanswered questions. And now the lawsuit.
Wow, that's a lot.
I know, it's like a lot to take in.
Yeah, and we're still left with so many questions.
Right, we have all these interesting pieces of information and connections, but we don't have any real answers.
It's true.
That's what I find so interesting about Owens' approach.
What's that?
She doesn't try to give you a neat and tidy conclusion.
Okay.
She lays everything out and lets the viewer connect the dots themselves.
It's like an interactive mystery.
Exactly, and that's why this whole story is so captivating. It's not just about Brigitte Macron.
Right.
It's about what truth really is and the power of stories and how technology changes the way we see things.
That's a good point.
It's like we're all detectives trying to figure out the clues and look at the evidence and decide what we believe.
It really is.
So what do you think is the most convincing piece of evidence or the biggest unanswered question?
That's a tough one.
I know, right? It's like we went down this rabbit hole and now we're questioning everything.
Yeah.
This whole deep dive has been crazy.
It really makes you think about how hard it is to know what's true these days with all the information out there.
Yep.
And this story is a perfect example with all the speculation and mystery.
You know, one thing that really stuck with me was that interview with Veronique.
Oh, yeah.
The way their voices sound and the way they talk, it's really freaky how similar they are.
It is pretty strange. And the fact that Veronique was so open about being transgender back then, when it was even harder to talk about,
Yeah.
it just adds another layer to the whole thing.
It makes you think about all the pressure and expectations around gender, especially back then.
Yeah.
It wasn't easy to be yourself like it is now, at least in some places.
Exactly. It shows how someone's story, especially about their gender, can be really complicated and change over time.
Right.
And when people try to put those stories into neat little boxes, it just leads to misunderstanding.
And Owens kind of plays with that idea, right?
Yeah.
Like maybe Veronique was Jean-Michel Trogneux figuring things out before becoming Brigitte.
It's a big claim, for sure. And like we said, it's almost impossible to prove or disprove.
Right.
But it does make you think about how well we can really know anyone, even people we're close to.
And how much of who we are stays the same and how much changes over time.
It's a question people have been asking forever, and now, because of Owens' investigation, we're thinking about it in this real-life situation.
This deep dive has definitely taken us to some weird places.
For sure.
We started with Owens' claims about Brigitte Macron, but we ended up talking about so much more.
I know, family stuff, the power of technology, what identity even means.
We had missing people, possible cover-ups, powerful groups, and even facial recognition software.
It's been a lot of information, and we still have so many questions.
But maybe that's the whole point of doing a deep dive like this.
Yeah.
It's not always about getting clear answers.
Right.
It's about making us ask bigger questions and challenging what we think we know and accepting that the world is messy and complicated. We started out wanting to look at what Candace Owens was saying about Brigitte Macron. And I think we did that, but we found so much more along the way.
Yeah.
We saw how stories are made and how power works and how technology can show us the truth, but also hide it.
So what do you think now that we've gone through all of this?
Well, I think it's important to stay curious and question everything and do your own research.
Absolutely. Don't just accept easy answers.
Yeah, because sometimes the most interesting stories are the ones that don't have all the answers.
Well said.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.
We'll see you next time.